Okay, listen to me. You're stronger than they are. You are.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Sean Rants Awkwardly and Incoherently for 20 minutes or so on a movie he just saw. I'm still working on that title. And if you saw the title of this video, you know that I'm talking about The Hunger Games. Going into this movie, well, really the only reason I wanted to see it in the first place was because this was hyped to hell pretty much since January, and I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. I haven't read the books yet, although after seeing this movie I do plan on it, because I enjoyed it. But going into it, I was worried, because... not because I was worried about it being a ripoff, although I have heard people say that, because everyone's, comparing this to Battle Royale, The Running Man. I've also heard comparisons to, like, Gladiator, which I can kind of see. I suppose The Most Dangerous Game to a lesser extent. But no, the reason I was worried is this is a young adult fiction novel with a mostly female audience. Does that remind you of anything? Reminded me of something scary. I was worried. Now, fortunately, piece of shit. Fortunately, my worries were unfounded. This actually ended up being very good and in pretty much every way completely unlike Twilight. Except for one minor detail, I'll get to that in a minute. And from what I've heard, it's breaking all records set by Twilight, so apparently there are young people out there who still have taste. There is hope for the future yet. And thank God. But anyway, looking at my cheat sheet here, so I give you a quick rundown of the plot. It's set in some kind of a post-apocalyptic future in what used to be known as North America. I don't think they specify what year, or if they did, I missed it. But yeah, basically, the country that used to be North America is now a capital in the center, where all the rich bastards live, and 12 districts surrounding it, which is where all the poor working class are. And at some point, there was a rebellion with all the districts rising up against the capital, and they lost. And as punishment, once a year, they have something called the Hunger Games. And every year, each district has to select 2 tributes, they call them. Age 12 to 18, 1 male, 1 female, and they participate in the Hunger Games. 24 kids go in, 1 comes out. The main character is named Katniss Everdeen. And before I go any further, for all future mothers out there, do not name your child Katniss. Just don't. It sounds too much like catnip. Your kid's gonna get made fun of endlessly. They will be tortured and mutilated beyond repair. Just do not name your child that. It's better than Renesmee, I will give you that. But still, don't, just no. No. I'm putting my foot down on this one. Here it goes. It's down. No. But anyway, yeah, Katniss, who was played by Jennifer Lawrence, who you may remember from X-Men First Class. She played Mystique. She was also in Winter's Bone. And you may remember her if you were one of the 5 or 6 people who saw The Beaver. Which, I have not seen that yet. I really want to, because I am just so curious. I really want to know just how much of a train wreck that turned out to be. It's got to be a riot. But anyway, basically the way most of the districts choose their tributes is just by a random drawing in a lottery. And her sister is initially chosen in the lottery for her district. The first year she's eligible. Tough break. But Katniss immediately jumps in and says, no. It's okay, I volunteer. I'm going in. So she gets sent off to the capital along with her male counterpart, whose name is Peeta. Again, future mothers. No, It sounds too much like a sandwich. Just no. Don't do it. And no, it's not Peter. It's Peta. Peeta. Yeah, don't do it. But anyway, she's sent to the capital, which is a huge step up from where she was living. Like, imagine coming from, like, the slums of Tijuana and going straight to some high-rise apartment building in New York City. It's that kind of a shock, except more futuristic and sci-fi with some very interesting hairdos. I don't think there is a single person that lives in the capital that does not have their hair dyed some pastel color. It's really weird. But yeah, it's kind of cool to watch. And while she's there, she's trained in how to fight and how to best participate in the Hunger Games. And she's mentored by a former winner of the games from her district, who's played by Woody Harrelson. I love this character. This hands down best character in the movie. When they first meet him, he just starts out as this belligerent, drunken asshole, just stumbles into their room, barely able to stand, just, walking in there, drink in hand. Hey, so you guys are the tributes. Yeah. Oh, you want advice? Yeah, I'll give you some advice. You're gonna die. Yeah, there's your advice. So yeah, awesome character. And of course, he gets better over time. He does turn into a much more likable and slightly more sober character as time goes on, and actually does become a good friend of Katniss. As for the Hunger Games themselves, basically they're played out like the world's worst idea for a reality television show, besides Jersey Shore. But yeah, the tributes are brought into a massive training center. They learn how to fight, and they're also taught by their mentors how to make themselves marketable. Not unlike reality television nowadays, really. This movie is not kind to the concept of reality television. It pulls no punches there. And I fully support that, because with very few exceptions, it is my opinion that reality TV is shit. It is a cancer on this planet that needs to be removed. It's like there are one or two shows that I can kind of enjoy. Like, I watch The Ultimate Fighter, really just because I'm a UFC fan. I like watching the fights. I suppose not too different from the Hunger Games now that I think about it, except no one dies. But, yeah, and I'll watch American Idol just the first couple of episodes for the train wrecks. But really, beyond that, it's all shit. But, yeah, and the idea of making themselves more marketable, not at all unlike Gladiator, where, win the crowd, you'll win your freedom. If you get the support of the crowd, they are encouraged to send you gifts during the games. They can, like, airdrop supplies like food or water or medicine, whatever you need, if you become popular enough to actually earn their support. It's an idea that would probably be horribly shunned today, but in this world, it's like the fucking Olympics. They have profiles of the contestants from, like, their version of ESPN. They're interviewed on late-night talk shows the day before the events. And everyone in the nation watches the show and cheers for their favorites. And actually, speaking of those interviews, this was a part of the movie that was really disturbing. And it's supposed to be. But yeah, each one of the contestants gets interviewed one by one. And of course, they're all smiles. They're all happy. It's like, hey, I'm here to represent my district. Go District 3! Woohoo! I'm going to go out there. I'm going to kick some ass. I'm going to win this thing. It's like, you probably have less than 24 hours before you die. What the fuck are you smiling about? I mean, you know why they're smiling, because they're trying to get sponsors. But still, in fact, one thing I would have liked to see more is, like, to show just how those characters are reacting after the interviews once the cameras are off. And, I mean, you see that, of course, with Katniss and Peeta, because they're the main characters, but you never see that with any of the other contestants, and I really wish they had gone more into that. Like, see if any of them just, break down in the middle of the interview, or if they manage to put a brave face on things just long enough to last through the interview segment, and then as soon as they get backstage, once the cameras are off, they just immediately start crying. Or if there's some that, once they get backstage, they're still like, oh yeah, gung ho, I'm gonna win this thing. You're all gonna die. That would have been really cool to see. Just, how the psychological effects are at play here, but they didn't show much of it. And I understand some of that may have just been because they had to cut some stuff out for time. And maybe they show more of that in the book. I don't know. I'll find out when I read it eventually. But yeah, because this movie was already, how long was it? 142 minutes. So yeah, they really couldn't add more running time into that. It was getting long as it is. So I can understand if they cut some stuff for time. But hopefully when the DVD comes out, there will be an extended cut, because I would love to see more of that. So the rest of the movie after that is the actual games, which I'm not going to talk too much about because I want to keep this relatively spoiler-free. But there is one thing I want to point out. There is one way that this just barely, kind of, sort of, but not really resembles Twilight. There is a bit of a love triangle going on here. Mainly because Katniss and Peeta kind of try to... There's kind of a romance forced upon them, mainly to, make them more appealing and boost the ratings and all that, which they don't outright show any kind of a love triangle. It's just hinted at and suggested. And I've heard it's actually a lot more played up in the book, but the filmmakers took a little creative liberty and downplayed it. And thank you for that, because I do not need another fucking love triangle story. Twilight has ruined that. And it was never very good to begin with. But it has been ruined. It is dead. So by all means, downplay it all you want. You will get no argument from me. One more thing regarding the games themselves. The one thing that I really didn't like was the violence. And by that I mean there wasn't enough of it. This was a movie that really, once the actual Hunger Games start, they really needed to be more like Battle Royale. There needed to be blood. There needed to be gore. There needed to be senseless killings all over the place, and which there still were. But I mean, they really did their best to make sure this ended up a PG-13 movie. One interesting way they did that, there's a lot of shaky cam throughout pretty much all of the fight scenes. Which, usually when you see a lot of shaky cam, it's either because the director doesn't know how to shoot a fight scene properly and is trying to hide it, or it's because that's all anybody knows how to do it nowadays and it's what we're accustomed to. It is another cancer on this planet that needs to be stopped. But in this movie, it's really used just as a tool to hide the violence in order to keep it down low enough for a PG-13. And I understand why they're doing that. I understand why they want to keep it PG-13, because again, this is a young adult novel that this movie is based on, so the majority of the audience is too young to get into an R-rated movie. There was a joke I heard on the radio, as crude as it was, what's 50 feet long and has no pubic hair, the front row at a Hunger Games screening. And although there were quite a few adults at the screening I went to, now about half of them had their kids with them, but there were quite a few adults there that did not have any children with them. They were just like me. So, maybe there's more of an adult audience than this film realizes. Or maybe my theater was just unique. I don't know. But yeah, this was... And it's kind of fitting that I'm talking about this right after reviewing Conan the Destroyer, because it's the same thing. You toned down the violence, which was one of the few things people were looking forward to after Conan the Barbarian. And it's one thing that a lot of people, I think, would look forward to with this, because this movie is about senseless violence. And there's not enough senseless violence. There really needs to be more of that. So, maybe when this comes out on DVD, it's all going to depend on how they filmed it, but maybe if they have enough footage that shows more of the blood and guts and all that, maybe they can put some more of that back in there and release an unrated extended version where they don't have the MPAA breathing down their backs and they have a little bit more room to cut loose. I hope they do. I really do. I mean, you can, of course, release the PG-13 version as well, but, please, if at all possible, give us an unrated cut. I want to see that. And let's see, looking at my notes here, I think I've covered everything. So, yeah, that's The Hunger Games. Gets a solid thumbs up for me. Go see it.